I'm Adrian Crawford with Graham here today, and we've got the best opportunity in the world. We're going to talk about why it's so special and details about what makes it authentic, what makes for a good restoration, and lastly, we're going to drive it. So I'm here with Graham Kidd, and Graham's worked for us in the restoration department for years and years, and he's got a lifetime with Porsche. So just tell me, Graham, what we got here.
So we have the iconic 1973 2.7 RS, which was pretty much their flagship model in 73. They built, I think, 1580 in total, which is including lightweights and tourings, and we have a touring here. They were initially built as a homologation car, a run of 500, and then Porsche built another 500 and then evened some numbers up.
So just to explain what homologation was, it was a license really to allow you to run a car in competition by the FIA, and the idea was that a manufacturer could produce 500 units of a production car, have it on wider wheels, more horsepower, bigger brakes, all sorts of clever little things that allowed it to be really, really competitive. Why is it homologation special?
Firstly, the most iconic part of the car, which is the ducktail, is a fiberglass top that's bonded onto an aluminium frame.
An aluminium frame?
Yeah, definitely the 2.2Ss had an aluminium rear engine lid, obviously to keep the weight off the back end of the car, and they used those frames and bonded these fiberglass tops on. The wider arches, so all the models up till this had much narrower wheel arches, and being a more of a competition-based car, these were supplied from the factory with a 6-inch front wheel and a 7-inch rear wheel, though this car's got a set of 7s and 8s. And Porsche introduced a slightly larger arch, and on original cars, this arch was welded on from the factory, so they had a narrow arch and they welded it through here, and there's a slight flare on the rear quarter, and you can tell a very good original car is usually you can see that weld on the inside where the factory welded it on by hand. There's
something about the actual arch profile that's different to later cars, even though it looks really similar.
Yeah, they open out and close up a bit, and they've got a sharper edge, whereas the later cars are a little bit more uniform. The next one is you can see is the front spoiler. It's a fiberglass front bumper.
Yep.
And this has got on the 2.4Ss and then the RS. This has got a little lip again to help with high speed stability. Obviously, the front of the bumper comes out, and where your number plate's mounted on. This would have, if needed, you could have removed that panel and put an oil cooler in there.
A centre oil cooler.
Centre oil cooler to help.
And then run the pipes through the inner wings and stuff.
Yes. Also, underneath the car, front suspension slightly different. The main support for the front suspension is made of aluminium instead of steel.
What, the one between the wheels, like under? Okay.
Yeah, and where the steering rack mounts. And the rear arms are steel rear suspension arms on this, but they're quite heavily reinforced from the factory. It's very difficult to see, but they've got a lot of extra bracing and welding on them just to strengthen them up. And also, whilst you're in that area, usually some of these models have got a reinforcement at the rear of the tunnel as well.
We've seen that on the ones that we've been involved in restored. So that would be under the carpet.
It's under the carpet, and it ties into the rear torsion bar to add rigidity in that area. Part
of the story with cars like this is that years ago the bodies were a lot more flexible than they are now, but it was still, everyone knew it was beneficial to try and stiffen up the shells a little bit. Yeah. And that's just one of the hidden things that you'd never spot easily unless you knew exactly where you were looking to determine an original RS body.
Yeah, that's true.
What else we got?
Obviously the rev counter is the red line stops slightly higher.
Oh yeah.
And it's got a smaller steering wheel as well.
Oh yeah, of course
which
it has,
they're just significantly smaller. 914s had those fitted, and a lot of 914s you find them missing. because they're quite a nice wheel.
Yeah.
Now inside this one, this, as I say, this is a touring model and not a lightweight, so it's a little bit more creature comforts. It's got electric windows. It hasn't got a sunroof, which is interesting, and it's got the early Recaro seats, tilting seats, which are really
No
nice and
headrests
comfortable.
on these.
No headrests on this one. There's probably a set for the car.
Yep.
It's to say it's more of a road-going version, whereas the lightweights were much rawer. So being a touring model, obviously it's more for creature comforts, and then they did build sort of like 280-ish lightweights. Now these are around about 1175 kilos in weight, whereas a lightweight is more like 960. And to get the weight down on a lightweight, they would have had thinner glass, Glaverbell glass, non-opening rear quarter windows, very lightweight carpet, very lightweight fiberglass style bucket seats. They deleted the glove box lid, they took the clock out, you only had one sun visor.
And they were charging more for that.
Charging more money for it. And various little bits and pieces. There's also, allegedly, they used to dip the shells to take some of the, the weight out of the steel and use a thinner steel on the panels. So that would gain you, as I say, about 200 kilos lighter for a lightweight, and obviously a bit more of an increase in performance.
So to give you an idea, a lot of these cars were bought and put directly into competition, and that was rallying and racing. And it was only in 1971 that the FIA decided that it was mandatory for all competition cars to have a rollover cage.
Yeah.
So up until then, you could have actually just turned off and put numbers on the doors and entered the Monte Carlo Rally if you wanted.
Yeah.
And even in 1973, people were literally putting a cage in this and putting numbers on the doors, and you could have done Circuit of Ireland, Monte Carlo Rally, or raced it anywhere around the world, and it would have been a competitive car.
Yeah.
And that's part of the interesting thing with these cars compared to the moderns, is that they were built to be used, and the vast majority of them had been used.
Yeah, lots got used, lots got damaged over the years, lots got crashed. They were that good. I mean, usually when you're restoring an RS, you see evidence of this. This car in particular has got race history. You can see on the inner wheel arches where there's been a cage in it when whoever's restored the car has left that in, which is a nice touch really, because it is a nod to its previous life.
Yeah, that's part of its journey, and I think that's really valid.
Yeah.
A lot of the moderns now, they'll just go straight into collectors' garages and nothing will ever happen to them, and that seems such a shame.
Yeah. So yeah, they were extremely good at what they did. They were, amazing cars for the era, and the performance is incredible for when you think back when it was built, and they're still pretty breathtaking now.
Well, the heart of this is really the go end. We've got the body a bit stiffer, usually a bit lighter, bigger wheels. So you could put wider wheels and wider tyres on. But the engine, tell me about the engine. And this, I know this is a special part of the whole car.
So up until this point in the Porsche range, the biggest engine car you could buy was a 2.4, and the quickest was the 2.4S. Well, for the 2.7 RS, it was increased to 2.7 litres. So this is obviously it's a 2.7 litre flat six. It's on mechanical Bosch injection, which is quite a complicated little setup in there, and with all the bits and pieces with the cams and everything in that motor, this was producing about 210 horsepower, which doesn't sound a lot nowadays, but for its time and for the weight of the car, it really does work well.
But having driven a few of these, one of the key things, it isn't just the horsepower and it isn't just the power to weight ratio, which is fairly impressive. It's the fact that the things respond so quickly.
Yeah.
Every little throttle input, it's up and away, and it feels super eager. And this, I don't know whether you guys noticed it, but it's got this dull finish to the cases. And of course, this is a magnesium cased engine, which needs, when you build them, special treatment, and we've done plenty of them.
Yeah, they need a little bit extra care, and especially the cases now are the best part of 50 plus years old. When you take a magnesium case apart, it relaxes, and if you put it straight back together again, things don't work inside it.
Yeah, I
so
see.
you end up having to line hone them in bits and pieces. As Adrian was saying about the performance and the responsiveness, that is down to the mechanical injection. It really is incredible. It is so responsive. Normally these cars would have a single air cleaner over the top. This one's got individual filters on it, but that's obviously the customers spec that.
What about gearbox? What was in the box?
So it's a 915 gearbox, which they used all the way through into the 911 SCs and the 3.2s. So the gearbox is essentially pretty much stock. You could have spec'd them with an LSD, you could have spec'd them without. This car hasn't got one. It probably used to have one at some point in its life.
Were the ratios the same as a standard car? I don't think they were.
I don't think so. Again, I think they were slightly different, and I'm sure you could have gone when you ordered your car, depending if you were going to use it for the road, use it for hill climbing, the mountain passes, rallying, you would have been able to spec
Actually,
different
that's
ratios.
right, because I know that there's a whole load of different ratios that apply to this back on the old homologation sheets, and yeah, made it really versatile, because for rallying you'd have it on shorter gearing, and for circuit racing you'd have a taller first and on longer gearing.